Hi, hope you're well. I'm Tom Craven. I'm going to show you seven tips on how to take better photos at gigs. So let's get into it. So tip number one is do your research. So for me, what I do is I watch a lot of previous live shows from that artist or band, and then I can work out where the best photos are going to be taken from, because quite often they'll set up the stage the exact same way for each gig that they do. So for Imagine Dragons, they have a drum that they use for particular songs, and when you know that them songs are starting, you know that someone's going to go over to that drum. You want to position yourself so you can get that photo of them playing that drum then. It also means actually working out the shape of the mouth that they pull for different phrases. Certain phrases look better, so anything that has an E sound makes it look like they're smiling, but then if there's any ooh sounds, ooh, and it doesn't look very nice in photos. So it's just being able to work out when to time them shots with what the lyrics that they're saying. So I learned quite a lot of their songs. It's a good job that I like most of the artists that I photograph. So then you can actually learn like when to take the photos so you can time it correctly instead of just doing it whenever you feel like it, and being able to actually time it with them. Tip number two is know what you can do. So this refers to what the venue and the artist and the management and everyone involved is allowing you to do. So usually if you're doing it as press in any capacity, it'll be first 3 songs, no flash. And that's just the standard that seems to always be the case. It'll always just be from the pit as well. There's sometimes when they don't allow you into the pit for whatever reason, and then it's the sound desk, which is quite far back. So it's just being able to know this in advance so then you can actually plan around that and know what you can and can't do. And also just trying to ask for more. So now if I go and shoot as press, I also ask, can I come into sound check, or can I stay for longer than the 3 songs, just so that I can get the most out of it for them as well as myself. This also will mean that you don't come into any kind of issues when it actually starts. I always have it in writing what I've been told I'm allowed from an artist. So then if they say that I can shoot the entire show, I know that if someone tries to kick me out of the pit after 3 songs, say that actually I've got permission to do this, and I've been instructed to stay in the pit and be wherever I want pretty much. It helps if you can do this in advance, so going up to them and going, I'm photographing for the artist, I'm going to be shooting the entire show, just to let you know, have I got the correct badge? Because you'll be given a badge that usually says this anyway, but sometimes they get it a bit wrong and you just have to double check with them to make sure that they actually have made the correct decision on what badge to give you. Tip number 3, if in doubt, stand to the right. So when you look at a stage, if you stand to the right hand side of it, that is probably where you're going to get the best shots, no matter what the artist is. So if they're a singer and they're holding a microphone, they'll usually be right-handed. So then you get this side instead of getting the elbow, because you're probably lower down, you'd get the elbow in this shot, and it's a bit awkward, like especially if they hold it up like this, like a rapper might do, that it just means that it blocks their face in the photo, so then you just don't get it. So you're best going from this side. And it's the same with guitar. Guitarists will have a mic stand in front of them, and this will block part of the guitar most of the time. But hopefully, if you're stood to the right hand side of the stage, you'll be able to get the most of that guitar in the shot. It just looks better, I feel. Whereas if you go to the left hand side, quite often the strumming hand can be covered by the mic stand. Quite often I'll have it on the boom that goes out to the side and then down here. So then it's just making it so it's clutter free when you actually get these images. Tip number 4 is move about. So don't just stay in the same spot just because it's working for a particular type of photo. You'll see this if you go to a pit and there'll be 5 or 6 photographers. Sometimes there's only one position that you can get a photo. Had this actually at Manchester Albert Hall. Because the stage is curved and it's really high, there's a little bit at the front that comes out again. And basically there's one particular spot that was really good for photos. I can't remember which artist, but there was only a particular spot where you could take photos from that were going to get anything that was usable. And someone stood there for 2.5 of the 3 songs that we had. Everyone was getting quite irritated by them because they're trying to make the best of whatever else they had, having to stand right behind them, being not very subtle that actually that person was in the way and they needed to move. And also, that person only has one type of shot. Unless they've absolutely nailed it and that's the only one they want to use, they haven't got anything else for variety. But they're stuck with just that one photo. So it's best just to move about and see where you can get different photos from different sides. And also the lighting would be different depending on where the artist is standing on the stage and when they move about. Because if you stand to either the extremes, if an artist is walking across, they almost look like they're looking into your camera. And that's a really good shot being able to get them to, because it looks like they're looking into your camera when actually it's the crowd just behind you that they're looking at. So it's really nice just being able to get that shot of them smiling, kind of interacting with the crowd, but almost as if the camera is part of the crowd. Tip number 5 is change focal lengths. So don't just stick at one focal length, like 50mm or 200mm. I've done this in the past. I used to use the 70-200 and I would use it either at 70 or 200 and nothing really in between and nothing else. Wouldn't go any wider. That was purely because the wider lens that I did have was an old Sigma and it wasn't very good at one, focusing in low light, but also wasn't particularly sharp and wide open. So I didn't like using it. Now I've got a Nikon version of the 24-70. I go wide quite a bit now, and I'm probably having the opposite effect where everything is dead wide instead of trying to get the tight shots as well. It's just to vary your shots, so then you've got a nice selection of ones that are establishing shot of the whole venue, a little bit tighter in of just the artist, and then again them close-ups of just like the face. It means that when you either use it for publication or for the artist, they've got a variety of ones that they can use instead of just one. Like a lot of my shots over the last couple of years have actually been really tight shots, which is all right, but like they're really solid shots on their own, but they don't really tell a story. And that's been the problem that I've had. So now I've tried to make it so that I shoot at different focal lengths and to try and encompass different things that I can get into the shot. Tip number 6 is shooting manual. So this doesn't mean manual focus, it's just the manual settings, because the lighting is going to be changing quite quickly in a gig, especially the faster the artist is, or the more lively the artist is, should I say, that you will find that the lighting changes constantly behind them, in front of them, and especially as they move around on the stage. You want to be able to control that because there is usually a set amount of light that will be going on their face. The rest of it behind them will change, and that's fine, as long as their face is exposed okay. Then it's not so bad. If you get an overexposed or underexposed background, then it just means that you can control it. Whereas if you allow the camera to try and work that out, it will get it wrong. It'll always try and overexpose. Because a gig is just so dark, there is just dark parts of that image. It will always just be underexposed. So really what you want to be doing is having it, you're in fully manual for the settings, so then you can control it. And you can change it and tweak it as you go, but it's a case of just actually being in control of that side of things, because otherwise your camera is going to guess and get it wrong a lot. When I first started, I shot in auto for the first 2 or 3 gigs that I did, and then I was told by the photographer at the uni, Paul, he said to actually shoot in manual and learn manual and then just stick with it. And since then, that's all I've ever done is shot manual. Even when it's like for anything else, I always shoot manual just so I've got control over that side of things. The lighting may change, but I can change the settings myself. Tip number 7 kind of refers back to tip 6, but it's befriend the lighting person. Whoever's doing the lighting, go and actually speak to them. I just basically make it so that they know who you are, and then they know then to kind of expect you if there's any issue. So for instance, some gigs, you'll notice that the lighting at the beginning might be poor and it's like, oh, this is going to be a tough gig to shoot that. There's going to be nothing. If they've used just red lights and you're just like, oh, this is just not going to be good for photos. You can just go over to the lighting person and ask, is there any chance that you could use anything else? I usually ask, the more neutral colour, the better on the face. I don't care what's behind them. As long as the face can be neutralised, that's fine. That makes it sound like I'm going to kill them. This just means that then at least I can have a nice exposure with good skin tone, and then all different funky lights going on behind them. But it just means that when I've already gone and spoken to them beforehand, they're not kind of that surprised that I may come over to them and talk to them about this, because there are gigs where I've been and it's a case of this poor act has had appalling lighting. It looks great for everyone else except for a camera. So it's a case of making that work for you, and just being able to ask them, can you tweak this, can you tweak that? And usually they will. There's sometimes they won't, because they're just like, well, no, this is programmed for this artist and this is what they always have. And there's nothing you can really do. But if it's smaller venues, they don't really tend to care that much if you go up and ask, can you just change it a little bit? They will. This can really dramatically improve your photos, especially when it comes to the main headline act. And then at least you know you're going to get the best photos. So there you go, 7 tips. I hope you find them helpful. If you do, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe and ring that bell and all the rest of that jazz that you need to now do on YouTube. Bye.